you so much for tuning in to another edition of the All Cardinals podcast. My name is Don Andrew, and joined every week by my main man, Kevin Hicks. Before we get into all the nitty gritty, go and comment, like, subscribe on the video below. It definitely does help us. Visit our work at allcardinals.com or sa.com/NFL/Cardinals. Follow Kevin on Twitter at khicks_21. Follow me on Twitter at Don Andrew. And Kevin, bro, the football season is flying by. I mean, we already are at week 5. My fantasy team is absolutely in the trash. It feels like I can't do anything right. The Cardinals feel the exact opposite. But before we get into that, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. We're kicking into full swing when it comes to sports. We got every sports league coming up, college football, college basketball as well. Cardinals are giving us a very strong sense of optimism right now. There's a lot to be excited about.
For sure. And speaking of excitement, I got to give a quick shout out to the D-backs getting that sweep over the Milwaukee Brewers, bringing it back. And we'll got a big series against the Dodgers, so we're definitely pulling for them. I think it's a good time to be a sports fan in the Valley. It wasn't really projecting like that a few months ago whenever you're looking at both the D-backs and the Cardinals, but through 4 weeks of play, I mean, the Cardinals have definitely been a very pleasant surprise.
Yeah, absolutely. The record, you can look at the record and be like, it's not been that successful, but the expectation around the league was that the Cardinals could be an 0-17 candidate. And the fact that they beat the Cowboys, who were a lot of people had them number one in the power rankings when they played in week 3. That's just an accomplishment in and of itself. And they've been competitive in every single one of the games as well. I'd say the Niners game was a lot closer than the final score indicated as well. They made the Niners work for that win. There's no doubt about it. And the Bengals might be a win coming up. Who knows? The way the Bengals have looked, it's very much a toss up to me.
Oh, for sure. I mean, they held leads in their first 3 games at halftime, and they got the 49ers lead down to 5 in the late stages of the third quarter. So I definitely think the scoreline wasn't flattering against one of the best teams in football. But I think if you're a Cardinals fan, you definitely have to like where this team is at after 4 weeks of play. And I guess we could start with the offensive side of the ball, Kevin. Josh Dobbs has been such a phenomenal pickup, and it didn't really seem that way whenever they first got him. It felt like everybody in the national media just threw the tank allegations at Monty Allison for it whenever they traded for Dobbs and then cut Colt McCoy. Week 1, he goes to Washington, 4.4 yards per attempt. The only touchdown came on the defensive side of the ball. Did not look great at all. But Kevin, it feels like week after week, Josh Dobbs has gotten better. He hasn't thrown an interception at all. He's fixed the fumbling problem that he had in week 1. And for the first time without Kyler Murray, it looks like the Cardinals have a legitimate, competent quarterback running the show.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to lie, I was on the start playing tune train after week 1. I was thinking maybe give Dobbs 1 or 2 more weeks. And if he doesn't work out, give the rookie some chances, throw him in the fire. But Dobbs has proven everybody wrong. I know national media was clowning him because he was saying after week 1, oh, we're going to get this fixed. After week 2, oh, we're going to do this better. And everything they said so far has come true. It's obvious that he's very comfortable in Drew Petzing's system, and that's a big reason why they went out and picked him up. He's a very physical runner. It's very impressive to see how he fights for extra yardage when he's scrambling. His accuracy is here and there. He had a couple of misses against the Niners, but that defense is incredibly scary. I would be scared to death if I was lining up against those guys. The fact that he led a 99-yard drive on the 49ers is enough reason to be thoroughly impressed with him.
Yeah, and it wasn't like one big splash play where they picked up all the yardage. I mean, they definitely drove down the field and earned that score on that 99-yard drive. And you look at the overall command of the offense that he has. And I like the point that you brought up to where after week 1, he said, look, we're gonna get this fixed. And the more time he's gotten under his belt with his new receivers, with his offensive line, in the system he already knew, getting more live reps with that, with offensive coordinator Drew Petzing kind of tailoring the offense to him. You've seen the Cardinals play very well. I think you can make an argument, Kevin, that the offense has surprisingly been the strong point of the team. And if you look at the graphic on the screen, 337.8 yards per game, which is 12th. 22 points per game, which is 18. So you definitely kind of want to get that up. I think that number does jump up a little bit if either Zach Ertz or Zach Pascal catches one of those touchdown passes at the end of last week. And then only 2 turnovers, both of those coming via Josh Dobbs fumbles in week one. He hasn't turned the ball over after that. Neither has anybody else, which is good for fourth in the NFL. Marquise Brown looks good. Michael Wilson is emerging. James Conner is one of the league's leading rushers. The offensive line does not look shabby at all, and that's putting their floor very, very low. Cardinals got something, man. They really might.
That I want to allude to what I was talking about before the season when we did one of our episodes when I was talking about how ridiculous it was to compare this team to the '08 Lions, the '17 Browns, like some of the worst teams in NFL history. I was pointing out you have Hollywood Brown, you have James Conner, you have two franchise tackles in Humphreys and Paris Johnson. There's a lot to work with even without Kyler. That's not a shabby offense, honestly. I think a lot of the trepidation had to center around the new play caller. Petzing had no experience calling plays before, and the quarterback uncertainty, and probably the inexperience of some of the younger blue chip guys like Mike Wilson and Paris. But when you looked at it from the beginning of the season, it's not that surprising that the offense has been better than expected, honestly. And I think I saw something on X last week that the Cardinals are ahead of the Eagles in offensive efficiency this season so far. And that's just a statement to the culture that Gann brought over from Philly, I feel like, as well.
Yeah, I think their DVOA, which I believe stands for defensive value over average, whenever you combine that with their offense, I think they rank as like the number 6 or the number 8 offensive attack in the NFL, which is extremely impressive considering what they've been able to do. And like you said, a first time play caller and Drew Petzing to be thrown into the fire like that, and for him to do the job that he has. I still have my reservations about him. I do think he gets a little bit too conservative in the second half when he should really be pushing, the pedal to the metal. But I mean, this offense looks night and day, so much different from Cliff Kingsbury's in such a good way too. I mean, you're seeing guys in their center, you're seeing play action. You're seeing more concepts than just your typical collegiate air raid offense that they had under Cliff, and I think that's really, really proving to be beneficial because they told us before the season, hey, we are going to run the ball. And I mean, excuse my French, but like they were not bullshitting. They are running the football, right? That they are doing a very, very good job of establishing the run. Now, granted, are they going to win the shootout with the Kansas City Chiefs? No. Are they one of the best offenses in the NFL? No. But so much of it, Kevin, is getting those reps together and getting that continuity together. And that's only going to grow as the season continues.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that. And I am so excited to see what Kyler can do with this offense. Kyler has, for most of his career, played off structure, honestly. A lot of the plays that he's made have been off script reads and scrambles and totally deviating from what Cliff wanted to do because honestly, there wasn't a lot of structure there. And now that there's structure there with Drew calling plays, I feel like Kyler will be a lot more comfortable in the pocket. I feel like Kyler will be able to have cleaner reads across the middle of the field, even if he's not the tallest. That's well documented. But
Yeah.
I'm very excited to see it in action. I don't know how much he'll run this year with the AC coming back from the ACL, but next year, if he's back and it's in full swing, that's going to be a sight to see.
Yeah, there's so much to consider whenever you're looking at Kyler Murray's future, but I don't think it's easy or like hard to question what he can do when there's actual talent around him and when cylinders are firing everywhere and what he's able to do with a competent play caller. I mean, we've seen how good that offense can be. Granted, he doesn't have DeAndre Hopkins now. He might not have Marquise Brown, depending on if the trade rumors and speculation kind of go the way that they're going. But I mean, I fully trust General Manager Monty Austin to assemble a very talented offense to put either around Kyler Murray or whoever else is playing quarterback for the Cardinals in 2024 and beyond. But just bringing us back to now, I mean, I've been very, very impressed with the Cardinals offense. I think we can expect them to get better as the season progresses. I mean, they have, granted, not to try to put lipstick on a pig, but like they're 1-3, but they have looked so much better than so many people have expected. Almost not entirely, but a good chunk of that coming because of the offense and how Josh Dobbs has played.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Dobbs, like I said, has accounted for a lot of the progression the offense has made because I truthfully he was put in a very tough spot. He was expecting to begin the season in Cleveland, and Cleveland was totally okay with having him as their backup. They move him. He has to move all of his stuff to Arizona in a day's time. He has to hit the facilities at 4:30 in the morning to learn the playbook. He already knew a lot of the playbook because Petzing, he has familiarity with Petzing, but he was really put in a tough spot. And the way he's persevered through all of those challenges is really impressive. Like, he doesn't have the strongest arm. He doesn't have the most accurate arm. He's not the fastest, but he has a lot of grit. He has a lot of intelligence. He takes care of the ball. He makes timely throws. He rarely makes the wrong decision. The Washington game, he made a few questionable decisions, but I'm thrilled that he's the backup right now. I feel like Kyler can learn a lot of things from him as well.
Well, I was gonna say, even in a post Josh Dobbs starting world, he's still a really good add to the quarterback room. So, to get all of this, to get the production that you have for a fifth round pick, for him to potentially kind of be the guy behind Kyler or maybe whoever else moving forward. I think that's a really, really valuable piece to got on the depth chart. And I mean, Josh Dobbs, he has 70% completion rate. He's one of 7 quarterbacks to do so. He's one of 2 quarterbacks with that completion percentage to throw for at least 4 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. Brock Purdy being the other one. And he's also 4th in rushing yards for quarterbacks. He's also found the score on the ground as well. I don't think there's any doubting so far. He's probably one of the better players on this team. And so, like you said, shout out to him. It's not easy at all. And, you heard Josh Dobbs whenever he came here was an extremely intelligent dude. I think we've definitely seen that come to fruition.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I continue to be extremely impressed with the decision making out there. Even looking at the game, even watching the game live, you can tell that the way he processes the field is just a level above some of the guys we've had in the past in Arizona. There's a long list of guys too that really were
Oh,
not
Kevin
makers.
Cole,
There's
baby.
Derek Anderson, John Skelton, Max Hall, Ryan Lindley, Josh Rosen. I could
Matt
go on and
Leinart.
on. I could go on and on, but it's a breath of fresh air to see him among the likes of Kyler and Kurt and Carson as relatively strong decision makers out there at quarterback.
Flipping over to the defensive side of the ball, and not to kind of put a damper in the conversation, but box score wise, they haven't really shown up how you thought a Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rallis defensive effort would have looked like. 375 yards per game, 27th, 25.5 points per game, which is 25th, and then 5 turnovers, which is a little bit higher, tied for 12th in the National Football League. They have been without Buda Baker for a handful of games now. They will be without Buda Baker for at least the next 2 games. They have a couple of defensive linemen on injured reserve. They've had a handful of starters here and there in the linebacker room miss games. You have Marco Wilson and Keitrell Clark as a 5th-round rookie starting at corner. I'm not sure what my expectations were heading into the year. I definitely thought they would have played, at least on paper, a little better. But I mean, you saw what they did against Washington's offense, and like they're no slouches over there, the Commanders offensively. But tall task when you're looking at Daniel Jones, at least before what happened last week, Saquon Barkley, a very, very good Cowboys offense, and then a just steamroller in San Francisco. All in all, I don't think they've played super terrible, but I definitely hope the expectation is kind of set a little bit higher than where they're playing at right now.
From my perspective, I feel like I've been pleasantly surprised with the defense, honestly.
Okay.
Going into the year, I was on paper, I was looking at Buda, Jalen, Kaiser, some of these building blocks on the defense, and I was thinking that's a pretty good start. Then I looked at the D line and I'm thinking this is one of the worst D lines I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
The only defense that I thought might have been worse on paper was the Rams going into the year, if I'm going to be honest with you. So this has been a pleasant surprise. The gap integrity of the D line has showed in general, even with some of the guys such as Collier going on IR, has been really impressive. Obviously, they didn't do much to stop Christian McCaffrey last week, but nobody has, so you can't hold that
Nobody
against
can.
them. You can't hold that against them at all for that. The cornerbacks, Keitrell Clark has been super impressive. He's been really holding his end of the bargain. When you look back at what the coaches have been saying about him since camp, uh, Marco, he's had a rough year. I feel like he's more of a CB2, CB3 than a starting
Yeah.
guy. So when you look at some of the personnel that they've had to work with, no Buddha for the last couple of weeks, I think that these guys have really overachieved. The way they played against Dallas was crazy because that Dallas offense has been on a roll. They were on a roll too against New England last week. And when you compare Dallas's performance on offense to the Cardinals versus everybody else, you go like, wow, they really had Dak uncomfortable. They really shut down a lot of lanes for Pollard to hit. They did. Keytrell did a really good job on CeeDee Lamb. I actually think that's funny. I
Yeah.
went on X a couple of days before the game, and there was this Cowboys fan that was saying he was free food for CeeDee Lamb, and I believe he allowed 3 catches off of him, which that was just funny to me. That just shows how good Keytrell is already as a rookie, honestly. And I attribute that a lot of that to Rallis and Gannon, honestly.
I will say I have been, I guess pleasantly surprised might be the right term to describe for their pass rush. I mean, a bunch of not question marks, but guys you really didn't have a good feel for either way whenever it came to getting after the quarterback. They've definitely showed they can not only pressure the quarterback, but also bring them down. Dennis Gardeck has looked every bit like Cardinals fans may have hoped him to. I haven't been crazy impressed with Zaven Collins, but like that's not a dig at him. I just haven't seen like TJ Watt numbers out of him, but that's crazy unfair to expect out of a guy making the transition from inside to outside linebacker, at least in the first 4 games of the season. But that rotation of defensive linemen on top of these guys' ability to pin their ears back. Myjai Sanders is supposed to be coming off pup, hopefully soon too. You're starting to see Cameron Thomas get a little bit of his juice. BJ Ojolari is still kind of finding his footing, but maybe halfway through the season he does pick it up. Not anything terrible in the pass rush department, which I know was kind of a concern heading into this year.
Yeah, absolutely. I was honestly intrigued by the edge rushers going into the season. We all know how talented Saban is. He had a rough rookie year. A lot of it, I'd say, was due more so to coaching than to his actual talent level or his ability. Last year he was really good. If you ask me, I thought he was really good watching him, and he really progressed throughout the season. This year, he's obviously, like you said, he's making the transition from inside to outside, and that's tough. And he really is it's really a strange place for him right now because he
Yeah.
is built like a power rusher, but he's actually moves really quick. So he could be a power or a finesse rusher. So he's still learning the ropes when it comes to balancing those two things and finding the moves and all of that. Um, Gardeck has, like you said, Gardeck has been really impressive
I love that
because
sack dance that he has.
Gardecki,
Yeah.
because he's been a Cards fan favorite for years, a lot due to his special teams play. He's kind of a lot like Justin Bethel, the Cardinals fans, because of just how hard he attacks kickoffs and all that. But his edge rushing, he's flashed it the last couple of years, and this year's coming in full force. I really still do like BJ Ojolari. And you also look ahead to the upcoming draft. The Cardinals could be in position to take Jared Verse as well and add another elite prospect into that mix.
Well, even like looking ahead short term, Garrett Williams, the third round rookie corner from Syracuse, was activated off the pup list. He has practiced both, Wednesday and Thursday as recording ahead of week 5. I think once he gets settled, I think he's going to be good. I
I
really, really am sipping the Garrett Williams Kool-Aid. And if he plays as good as he should, that'll be such a huge boost. This Cardinal secondary that definitely needs it. I'm right there with you. Marco Wilson, just for whatever reason this year, has not played like many had hoped he would play. And to your point, too, maybe I was a little bit too harsh because with the defense without Buda Baker, and without a handful of other key pieces too. It's definitely tough, especially on their first year defensive coordinator like Nick Roush. But I mean, if we're looking at bright spots, Kaiser White, what a unbelievable inside linebacker. He's not going to make the Pro Bowl. He's not going to win any awards, but man, like, is this defense night and day better with him in the stack?
Oh yeah, he's a heck of a player. There's a reason why Philly has. I'm not going to say their defense has fallen off crazy.
Numbers
It's
wise, it has.
fallen off crazy numbers wise. There's still talent there, but Kaiser was an enforcer in the middle of that defense. If you watched any Eagles games last year, he was in the mix on about every single play on the second level of the field. And him and Gannon and Rowlis were all big parts of that. And it's crazy that Monty Ossenfort was able to get him on $5.5 million a year. I believe it was a 2-year, $11 million contract. That is absolutely crazy to me because he's a heck of a football player. This you wouldn't have seen this from Vance Joseph and Isaiah Simmons. I'm just going to tell you that much.
Vance Joseph might not make it through the season in Denver.
Maybe not.
But dude, if they keep allowing 70 points per game, I'm not sure how that can happen. 2 years, 10 million is
That's
what Kaiser White got.
that's absurd.
And even more than anything, man, like especially with Buda Baker being out, you look for a leader. Kaiser White has definitely owned that leadership role on that side of the defense. He wears the green dot, so he relays all of the play calls to the rest of his teammates. Such a great signing, such a great signing. And I guess the hope, I talked about continuity kind of evolving the offense. Hopefully the continuity builds with the defense. They can get Buda Baker back, hopefully sooner rather than later. And the Wills can definitely get training from there. To put a bow on this conversation, because it's been a really great one, to be fair, you have to like where the Cardinals are at, right? Like you have to really, really like where the Arizona Cardinals are at. They're 1-3. They're probably not going to make the playoffs, barring a crazy run in the second half of the schedule. They're competitive. They're showing you they are not here to lose. The players are playing hard. The coaches are coaching hard. They are getting better week after week, seemingly. They're either going to win games or they're going to get a pretty high draft pick. Either or. I don't know, man. Like, they were supposed to win 1 or 2 games max. They were the only team not favored to win a single game heading into this year by Vegas sportsbooks. I don't know. I might be sipping the Kool-Aid too much here. I really, really like where this team is heading for the future.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And going back to the betting odds, now it looks so absurd that the Bears were favored over the Cardinals. Like Kyler's going to be back by that point. That's a Christmas Eve game, I believe. And I feel like you can pencil that in as a Cardinals win, honestly, unless Justin Fields somehow transforms into Goku or something like that. The Bears are an absolute train wreck. 14 losses in a row.
Yeah.
They blew that big lead to the Broncos, who looked like just as much of a train wreck as they did. It just doesn't look good there. And that honestly is a team that Caleb would probably refuse to play for. He'd pull Eli Manning for, not the Cardinals. But if you're looking at the schedule, honestly, the rest of the season, I could see 5 or 6 wins this season, which is that is incredible, especially
Wild.
last year's team was a lot more talented than this year's team, and they only won 4 games. And off the top of my head, looking at the schedule, I feel like Atlanta could be a win possibly, especially if Kyler's back, because I I like the Falcons' talent, but Desmond Ridder just isn't cutting it for them. It's obvious that the offense is capped, the ceiling is capped with him. So I could say Atlanta could be a dub. I could say Houston maybe, say maybe one of the Rams games because we don't have Cliff or Sean McVay to own anymore. That's in play.
Cincinnati, maybe. I mean, we talked about it a little bit
Cincinnati,
earlier.
Cincinnati, I'd say I'd still throw Chicago in there. I'd say maybe even an unexpected upset again, like beating Dallas, kind of that magnitude of upset. Who knows? The NFL is a weird league.
Dude, I forgot who said it, and I'm kicking myself, but I love it. I'm pretty sure I told you this a couple of days ago, but the NFL is such a week to week league, man. Like, if you do not show up, you are going to get beat. It does not matter what helmet you wear, it doesn't matter what jersey you're wearing. If you don't show up, you are going to lose. And I think Jonathan Gannon and company have done a very good job of ensuring his guys show up. And dude, like talk is so cheap, right? And we heard all through the summer about how the culture is changing and the players are buying in. We hear that 31 other places in the NFL. And if you're a Cardinals fan, how many times have you been duped into this kind of false hope narrative where things are shining, they're glittery, but it's not gold, right? It turns out to be false. I like where the Cardinals are heading, man. And I said it probably 5 minutes ago. I'll say it again. If you're an Arizona Cardinals fan, you really have to like the direction on his team, and that's with Kyler Murray's future up in the air, regardless. Because either A, he comes back and he looks good, and you know you still have your franchise quarterback, or B, if he doesn't play well whenever he comes back, probably looking at a decent draft pick to go get your guy for the future. So either way, so much more time for all of that situation to divulge. Closing thoughts on the first 4 weeks of the season, because I've been impressed despite the 1-3 record.
I've been really impressed as well, and like I said, I'm looking forward to 5 or 6 wins this season, and if Kyler's starting from week 1, maybe you could be talking about the 6th or 7th seed in the wild card race right now for this team, because you could very much argue that they win the first 3 games without Kyler. I mean, with Kyler healthy.
Mm.
And, looking ahead, I wanna touch back on that. You're not only talking about really good draft picks regardless of what record the Cardinals and Texans finish with, you're also looking at upwards of $50 million in cap room to spend on free agents, shore up the O-line, the D-line, get the trenches worked out, maybe sign a big corner to support Keitrell and Marco. And you also, like you said, you have the quarterback option. For me personally, I think it's Kyler or Caleb or bust. I personally don't love any of the quarterbacks as a fit for the Cardinals or an upgrade over Kyler outside of Caleb. I'm not huge on Drake May. I like Michael Penix, but I really don't think he's an upgrade over Kyler long term or right now. But the fact that you have all these options open right now due to that trade with the Texans, it opens up a whole different level of avenues that you
Yeah.
can take. And that's what's exciting about the future. You have really good draft capital, you have a lot of cap room, and it seems like you have a competent front office in place now. And that you shouldn't ask for any more as a fan. You just need ownership to step up as well.
I was gonna say, man, rarely does like the short or long term outlook for a team, especially here in Arizona, bode so well, right? Because the future looks really promising. You have the cap space, like you talked about. You have the draft picks that Monty Austin for, and he'll probably add more before the draft comes, if we're being honest. That on top of like, dude, if you're a fan, you're getting your money's worth every Sunday. Like the Cardinals have not been blown out. They have been in every single game. They like we said before last week against the best team in the NFL. They've led at halftime every single week. And I think as a Cardinals fan, knowing what the roster looked like heading into this year, that's really all you can ask for, right? Is for them to show up every Sunday and at least make it worth your 3.5 hours to sit down and watch your favorite football team, even if they're going to lose.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I feel like even if they don't win another game the rest of the year, fans will be pleased just because of the Dallas win. That just showed
Yeah.
Dallas is an irritant to a lot of Cardinal. I mean, it's to the NFL as a whole, but Cardinals fans, I feel like especially really dislike Dallas because of a lot of people in the Valley are Cowboys fans because that's the only team that they could watch on TV growing up in the
Yep.
60s, 70s, and 80s. So there's kind of a territory turf war going on still between the two franchises, I'd say. So I feel like that was a very sweet victory, and I don't think there's gonna be a stretch the rest of the year where they don't win another game. I feel like there's several more wins on the schedule, like I said, but hypothetically, it's just the growth of the team that matters right now, honestly.
Tell you what, if they hit 7 wins, we'll do a giveaway on his pod. I'm not sure what it's going to be.
They
If Michael Wilson pops out like he should, if they hit 7 wins, mark my words, we will do a giveaway here.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's do the damn giveaway. You heard it here first. Something awesome and amazing coming your way if the Cardinals do hit 7 wins, like my man Kevin suggested. Thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of the All Cardinals podcast. Go ahead and follow Kevin on Twitter at khicks_21. Follow me on Twitter at Donnie and follow our work at allcardinals.com or si.com/NFL/Cardinals. You know the deal. Thank you so much for the support.